coffee had gone cold 2 hours ago, but I drank it anyway. Night shift at the hospital means you learn to love bad coffee and flickering fluorescent lights. I just finished a 12-hour rotation, my third this week, and my body moved on autopilot as I walked through the empty parking garage toward my Honda Civic. 2:35 a.m. The mountains looked like black cutouts against a slightly less black sky. I'd driven the Blue Ridge Parkway home from the hospital 467 times. Yes, I counted. When you're a night shift nurse driving alone through the mountains at ungodly hours, you count things. Mile markers, roadkill, the number of times you check your rearview mirror. Normal anxiety, manageable anxiety. The engine turned over smoothly. Heat blasted from the vents, cutting through the November cold. I pulled out of the garage and merged onto Route 221, the mountain highway that would take me 40 miles through winding darkness to my small rental house. My headlights carved tunnels through the black, illuminating white lane markers and not much else. For the first 15 miles, I was completely alone. The road climbed and descended, curved and straightened, exactly as it had every other night. My mind wandered to the patient in room 304 who'd coded twice during my shift. We'd brought him back both times, but I'd seen that look in his eyes, that knowledge that his body was giving up. I wondered if he'd make it through the day's shift. That's when the headlights appeared. Mile marker 47. I remember because I just passed it, the reflective white numbers catching my peripheral vision. In my rearview mirror, 2 bright lights crested the hill behind me. High beams, which immediately irritated me. You don't use high beams when there's a car ahead of you. Mountain driving etiquette. I tapped my brakes gently, a universal signal, back off or dim your lights. The headlights didn't change. They stayed exactly the same distance behind me, maybe 3 car lengths, matching my speed perfectly as the road curved left, then right, then climbed. Probably just someone else heading home from late shift, I told myself. The hospital employed dozens of people working nights. I'd pass someone on this road maybe once a week, nothing unusual, but something felt wrong. I couldn't articulate it then, couldn't pin down the source of the unease crawling up my spine. The headlights were just headlights. The distance was normal, but my hands tightened on the steering wheel and I found myself checking the mirror every few seconds. The road straightened out for half a mile, one of the few straight sections on the entire route. I sped up, pushing 65 in a 55 zone, eager to put distance between myself and those lights. They sped up too, exactly. Maintaining the precise 3-car length gap, my heart rate kicked up. Okay, maybe just coincidence. Maybe they're also speeding, also tired, just want to get home. I slowed back down to 55 as the road curved again. The headlights slowed. 3-car lengths, exact. What the hell? I said aloud, my voice sounding small in the car's interior. I adjusted my rearview mirror, trying to see past the glare to make out what kind of vehicle was behind me. Truck, car, I couldn't tell. The high beams completely whited out any detail, turning the vehicle into nothing but 2 burning eyes. Mile marker 52. The road descended sharply here, a series of switchbacks that required careful attention. I focused on driving, telling myself I was being paranoid. But the feeling intensified, that primitive hindbrain sense that something is hunting you. I tested them on the switchbacks. I took the first turn slower than necessary, watching my mirror. The headlights slowed, maintaining distance. The second turn, I accelerated through it, not dangerously, but faster than I'd normally drive. The headlights accelerated, perfectly matched. Okay, fuck this. I pressed the button to dial my boyfriend, Jake. The car's display showed his name, started to ring, then failed. No service. Of course not, this stretch of mountain highway was notorious for dead zones. My phone would be useless for the next 20 miles. 20 miles, alone, with those headlights burning into my mirrors. I tried to think rationally. Maybe it was a cop about to pull me over for speeding earlier. But no flashing lights, no siren. Maybe someone playing a prank. But who would follow someone for, I checked my odometer, almost 8 miles now just to fuck with them. Mile marker 56. A closed rest stop appeared on the right, just a small parking area with bathrooms that were locked after 10 p.m. On impulse, I jerked the wheel and pulled in, my tires crunching on gravel. I stopped, put the car in park, and watched my mirror with my heart hammering. The headlights slowed, turned into the rest stop, stopped about 30 feet behind me, perfectly centered in my rearview mirror. My mouth went dry. I couldn't see the vehicle at all, just those two unblinking circles of light like eyes that never blind. They sat there, idling, waiting. What the hell did they want? I grabbed my phone, still no service. I had pepper spray in my bag, but what good would that do? I was locked in my car, they were locked in theirs. Mexican standoff. Except I had no idea what their move was. 30 seconds passed. A minute. The headlights didn't move, didn't dim, didn't change at all. My hands were shaking now, adrenaline flooding my system. Every horror story I'd ever heard about women being followed, attacked, abducted crashed through my mind in a wave of terror. I made a decision. I threw the car in drive and gunned it, gravel spraying as I fishtailed back onto the highway. In my mirror, the headlights followed immediately, not rushing, not aggressive, just smoothly pulling out and resuming that exact 3-car-length distance. "Fuck you!" I screamed at the mirror. "What do you want?" No answer, just those eyes following, mile marker 60. The road climbed steeply here, engines straining. I pushed the accelerator down, taking the Civic up to 70 on the incline, dangerous, stupid, but I needed to know if they'd match me. They matched me. At mile marker 63, pure desperation made me try something insane. The road curved sharply right, but I killed my headlights completely, plunging myself into absolute darkness and pulled onto a thin shoulder, praying I wouldn't tumble down the mountainside. I held my breath, watching my mirror in the dim glow of my dashboard lights. The headlights came around the curve, slowed, stopped exactly where I'd pulled over. They knew. Somehow, they fucking knew exactly where I'd gone despite having no lights. I flipped my headlights back on, hands trembling so badly I could barely grip the wheel, and accelerated back onto the road. The headlights followed, patient as death. Mile marker 67. I was crying now, silent tears streaming down my face, my breath coming in short gasps. 18 miles to town. 18 miles to streetlights and other people and safety. My phone showed one flickering bar of service. I tried to dial 911, but the call failed immediately. The winding road felt endless, each curve identical to the last, like I was trapped in a loop. The headlights never varied, never blinked, never did anything but follow with mechanical precision. Mile marker 71. A farmhouse appeared on the left, lights on, someone awake. I nearly turned in, nearly sought help, but what if they followed me to that house? What if I led them to someone else? The thought of those headlights pulling into that family's driveway made me keep driving. Mile marker 74. My car was struggling on the hills now, the engine temperature gauge creeping up. Not now, I thought desperately, not fucking now. But the car kept going and the headlights kept following. I started talking to myself, a stream of consciousness terror. 13 more miles, I can do this, just get to town, just get to people. They won't follow me into town, they can't. There'll be other cars, streetlights, I just have to make it. Mile marker 78. The road descended now, a long winding descent toward the valley where my town sat. I could see a faint glow on the horizon, the town lights still miles away but visible. Hope surged in my chest. The headlights stayed exactly 3 car lengths behind, following me down. Mile marker 82. My phone buzzed 2 bars of service. I voice commanded it to call Jake. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Answer, I prayed, please answer. Babe, it's almost 3 in the morning, you okay? His voice, groggy with sleep, was the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. Someone's following me, I gasped out. They've been following me for, I checked the odometer, over 30 miles. I'm almost to town, I'm going straight to the police station, I need. What? Who's following you? Did you call 911? No service until just now. I'm calling you. I need you to meet me at the police station right now. Please, I'm getting dressed. I'm leaving now. Stay on the phone with me. Mile marker 86. The town glow was brighter now. I could make out individual street lights. 4 miles, just 4 more miles. They're still behind you. Jake asked, and I could hear him moving, keys jingling. Yes, they've been exactly the same distance the entire time. They followed me into a rest stop. They found me when I killed my lights. Babe, listen to me. You're almost to town. Keep driving. I'll be at the police station in 5 minutes. Mile marker 89. Streetlights appeared, the first ones marking the town boundary. The speed limit dropped to 45. I maintained 60, flying past the first few houses, their windows dark. I checked my mirror. The headlights had stopped. I slammed on my brakes, skidding slightly, staring in disbelief. The headlights sat perfectly still at the town boundary, right at that first streetlight, as if there were an invisible barrier they couldn't cross. They stopped, I whispered. What? They stopped at the town limit. They're just sitting there. For 10 seconds, I watched those headlights idle at the boundary. They didn't inch forward, didn't turn around, didn't move at all, just waited. Then, slowly, they backed up. Not turning around, backing straight up until they disappeared into the darkness beyond the streetlights. I drove straight to the police station, my whole body shaking. Jake was already there, parked illegally in front, and I stumbled out of my car into his arms. They're gone, I sobbed. They stopped at the town line. The police took my statement. 2 officers drove back out to search the highway. They found nothing. No vehicles, no evidence, nothing. When they came back an hour later, one of them, an older officer with gray at his temples, asked me specific questions. What mile marker did they start following you? How far did they follow? Did they stop at the town boundary? I answered, and I watched his face go carefully neutral. Ma'am, he said quietly, you're the 3rd person in 2 months to report being followed by unidentified headlights on that exact stretch of Route 221. My blood went cold. The 3rd. The first 2. He hesitated. Their vehicles were found abandoned on the shoulder. Doors open, engines still running, headlights on. No signs of struggle. They were never found. What mile markers? I asked, though I already knew. Mile marker 47 to mile marker 89, same as you, but they didn't make it to town. 3 months later, I still can't drive that route at night. I've switched to day shifts, even though the pay is less, even though it wrecked my sleep schedule. I take the long way home when I work evenings, an extra 40 minutes through populated areas, never the mountain highway. Because here's what the police didn't tell me, what I found out from a local journalist who'd researched the story. Over the past 15 years, 8 people have disappeared from that stretch of Route 221. Always between mile markers 47 and 89. Always between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. Always on moonless nights. Their cars are always found the same way, running, doors open, no signs of struggle, just gone. And every single person who was followed but made it to town alive reported the same thing. The headlights stopped at exactly the town boundary, like something was keeping them out, or like they'd already gotten what they came for from everyone who didn't make it. I don't know what was behind those headlights. I don't know if it was human or something else. But I know this. When I looked in my rearview mirror during that endless drive, just before they stopped at the town line, I finally saw past the glare for just a split second. There was no vehicle, just 2 lights floating in the darkness at exactly the right height, the right distance apart, moving with impossible smoothness. Lights that couldn't exist without something to mount them on. I told the police. They wrote it down. They didn't believe me. But sometimes, when I'm driving during the day now, I pass mile marker 47, and I swear I can feel something watching from the tree line, patient and hungry, waiting for night to fall again. Remember when we used to dream about leaving the city? Michael said, reaching across the center console to squeeze my hand. Getting a place in the mountains, escaping all the noise. I smiled, watching his profile in the dashboard lights. 15 years married, and he could still make my heart flutter with simple gestures. I remember you being very dramatic about it. The city is devouring our souls, Catherine, like you were in a Victorian novel. He laughed. I stand by that assessment. Our souls were being devoured, medium rare. It was 11:38 p.m., and we were driving home from our anniversary dinner at the Lodge, a fancy restaurant perched on a Blue Ridge overlook. The kind of place where they fold your napkin when you go to the bathroom and the wine list has pages. We'd indulged in every course, lingered over coffee, celebrated 15 years of marriage with the kind of quiet contentment that comes from truly knowing another person. The night was perfect. Clear skies, light fog patches that added atmosphere without reducing visibility, the smell of autumn leaves through the slightly cracked window. Route 221 wound through the mountains ahead of us, familiar as our own driveway. We'd driven this exact route hundreds of times over the 15 years we'd lived in these mountains. Mile marker 34, Michael announced, playing our old game. We'd started it years ago to pass time on these drives, calling out mile markers, seeing if we could remember what came next. Stupid couple stuff. Next up, 35. Confident, I teased. 35. He called out triumphantly as we passed it. I am the master of sequential numbers. Fear my power. Your power is very intimidating. Mile marker 36 appeared right on schedule, then 37. The road curved and climbed exactly as it always did, our headlights sweeping across familiar rock faces and guardrails. 38, Michael announced before we reached it, but the sign that appeared in our headlights didn't say 38. It said 38, 5. Did you see that? I asked. Yeah, weird, must be a typo or something. Maybe they added a half marker for some maintenance reason. Since when do they use decimal points on mile markers? Since tonight, apparently. He shrugged. Mountain Highway Department probably has some weird system. It was reasonable, logical. We'd lived in these mountains long enough to know that rural infrastructure had its quirks. Still, something about it felt wrong in a way I couldn't articulate. The next marker appeared, 38. 6. "Okay, that's definitely not normal," Michael said, his voice losing its playful tone. "Michael, what's going on?" "I don't know. Maybe it's like. They're marking tenths of miles for some reason. Construction zones sometimes do detailed markers." Mile marker 38. 7. The road ahead looked the same, winding, climbing, lined with dense forest. But the curves felt wrong. Too sharp. I'd driven this stretch countless times. I knew its rhythm the way you know the stairs in your own house. But these curves didn't match my muscle memory. Mile marker 38. 8. "We should turn around," I said. "Turn around where? This road doesn't have anywhere to turn until the next overlook, and that's..." Michael trailed off, frowning. "That should be coming up right after mile marker 40, just a mile or two." Mile marker 38. 9. The fog was thicker now, I realized. The patches that had seemed atmospheric were congealing into walls of gray that pressed against our windows. The trees looked denser too, their branches reaching over the road in ways I didn't remember. "Check the GPS," Michael said. I pulled out my phone. The screen showed our location as a blue dot on Route 221, exactly where we should be. But the road on the map was wrong. It curved in long, smooth arcs, while the actual road beneath us twisted in sharp, frequent turns. And the mile markers on the GPS went straight from 38 to 39, no decimals, no half numbers. "The GPS says we should have passed mile marker 39 already," I told him. "But we haven't. We're still in the 38s. His hands tightened on the steering wheel. "I don't understand what's happening." Mile marker 38, 95. "This doesn't make sense," I whispered. "Mile markers don't count by hundredths, they don't do that." "I know." "So why?" Mile marker 38, 975. My stomach dropped. The numbers were getting more specific, more granular, counting up in smaller and smaller increments. Like we were approaching something asymptotically, getting infinitely closer but never quite reaching it. "What comes after 38, 999? I asked, my voice thin. 39, it has to be 39. But I wasn't sure anymore. Math has rules, yes, but we weren't in a math textbook. We were on a mountain highway that was counting mile markers in thousandths now, where the road didn't match the GPS and the fog had turned the forest into an impenetrable wall. Mile marker 38, 99. "There." Michael pointed ahead. "The overlook, that's our overlook, the one where I proposed." He was right. I could see the widened shoulder, the parking area, the distinctive split-rail fence. We'd been to this overlook a dozen times since he'd proposed here 16 years ago. It was a special place, our place. But something was wrong with it. Michael pulled into the parking area and we sat staring. The split-rail fence was there, but the wood was rotted through, gray and skeletal. The information placard that usually displayed facts about the mountain range and wildlife had been weathered completely blank, the metal frame twisted and rusted. The safety railing along the overlook edge was corroded to lace. "This isn't right," I said. "We were here 6 months ago. It was fine. New railings, fresh paint on the placard, everything maintained." Michael got out of the car. I followed, my skin prickling in the cold fog. We walked to the overlook edge, carefully because the railing looked like it would crumble at a touch. The view should have shown the valley below, the town lights twinkling like grounded stars, the ribbon of highway visible as a line of moving headlights. On clear nights, you could see for miles. We saw nothing. Not darkness. That wasn't the right word. Darkness implies absence of light, shadows, depth. This was void. A complete and total nothing that hurt to look at, like staring at a hole cut in reality itself. No valley, no lights, no distant mountains. Just absolute empty black that seemed to swallow our flashlight beams. "Catherine!" Michael's voice was shaking. "What the fuck is that?" "We need to leave, right now." We ran back to the car. Michael fumbled with the keys, his hands trembling. The engine started, thank God, and he threw it in reverse. "Wait," I said. "Look." At the edge of the parking area, where we'd entered from the road, stood a mile marker. I hadn't seen it on the way in. The number made my throat close. Mile marker 38, infinity. The infinity symbol, impossible. Mile markers are numbered with integers, simple whole numbers that make sense. They don't use mathematical symbols for concepts that can't be reached. "That's not real," Michael said. "That can't be real." "Drive, just drive." He pulled onto the road, heading back the direction we'd come. The mile marker for the overlook disappeared in our rearview mirror, swallowed by fog. The next marker we passed, 38, infinity. Then another, 38, infinity. Every single mile marker in both directions showed the same symbol. We were trapped at infinity mile marker, on a road that went nowhere and everywhere simultaneously. "The GPS!" I said desperately, checking my phone. It still showed us en route 221, but now the map displayed a perfect circle of road. A loop. No beginning, no end, just an eternal circuit returning to itself. We drove for what felt like hours but might have been minutes. Time felt elastic, unreliable. My phone's clock showed 11:47 p.m., only 9 minutes since we'd seen the first strange mile marker. That couldn't be right. Every mile marker, 38, infinity. Every curve of the road, identical to the last. Every section of forest, the same trees, same density, same walls of fog. "We're in a loop," Michael said, his voice hollow. "We keep passing the same stretch over and over." "That's impossible." "Then explain it. Explain how we've been driving for." He checked the dashboard clock. 3 hours, but your phone says it's been 10 minutes. Explain the infinity symbol. Explain the fucking void where our town should be. I couldn't. I had no explanations, no rational framework that could contain what was happening. We passed the overlook again. Same rotted fence, same rusted placard, same void below. This time I noticed something I'd missed before, tire tracks in the dirt parking area. Recent tracks, multiple vehicles, all pulling in but none pulling out. How many other people had found this place? How many had stopped at this overlook and never left? "Don't stop," I told Michael. "Keep driving." He did, past more infinity markers, through more identical stretches of road, around more curves that looked exactly the same. The fog pressed closer. The trees leaned in, and slowly I began to notice other details that were wrong. The sky had no stars, not hidden by clouds, just empty, flat gray nothing. The fog didn't move. It didn't drift or swirl. It hung perfectly still, like it was painted in place. There was no sound outside the car. No wind, no animals, no rustle of leaves. Just our engine and the sound of tires on asphalt. "We need to try something different," I said. "We can't just keep driving in circles." "What do you suggest?" "Stop the car, maybe if we're not moving." "Are you insane? We're not stopping on this fucking road." "We're not getting anywhere by driving." Michael slammed on the brakes. The car skidded slightly, stopped in the middle of the road. Silence crashed down on us. The engine's hum seemed obscenely loud in the absolute quiet outside. "Now what?" he asked. I had no answer. We sat there, breathing, waiting for something to change or happen or make sense. My phone's clock ticked forward. 11:48 p.m. Still only 11 minutes since this started. That's when we saw the lights. Far ahead, barely visible through the fog, 2 lights appeared, headlights, another vehicle on the road. "Someone else is here," Michael whispered. The headlights didn't move. They just sat there, pointed at us, unblinking. "Michael, drive." "Maybe they can help." "Drive." He hit the gas. We accelerated forward toward the lights. But as we got closer, something became horrifyingly clear. The lights weren't attached to anything. They floated in the fog at exactly the right height for headlights, spaced the right distance apart, but there was no vehicle beneath them. Just 2 circles of light hanging in empty air. We passed through them. I felt nothing, no impact, no temperature change. We simply drove through the space where impossible headlights floated, and they vanished in our rearview mirror like they'd never existed. "What was that?" Michael's voice was breaking. "What the fuck was that?" The next mile marker appeared, 37, regular number, whole integer, going backward. "We're getting out," I said, afraid to believe it. "The numbers are going down, we're leaving." Mile marker 36. The fog was thinning. The trees looked normal again, properly spaced, branches at natural angles. The sky showed stars. Mile marker 35. "Oh, thank God," Michael sobbed. "Thank God, thank God, thank." Mile marker 34. We recognized this stretch now, genuinely recognized it. That distinctively shaped pine tree, that particular curve. This was the real road, the actual Route 221 we'd driven 1,000 times. "We're out," I said. We made it out. We drove in silence for the next 30 minutes, past regular mile markers counting down in normal integers, through normal fog that drifted naturally under a normal sky. When we finally pulled into our driveway, Michael turned off the engine, but neither of us moved. "What time is it?" he finally asked. I checked my phone. 7:43 a.m. "What?" My phone says it's 7:43 in the morning. Sunrise in 15 minutes. Michael checked the dashboard clock. 11:52 p.m. We got out of the car on shaking legs. The sky was definitely lightening, pre-dawn gray, not midnight black. Our neighbor's newspaper sat in their driveway. Birds were starting to sing. Inside, I checked the date on our kitchen clock, our television, my laptop. They all agreed. We'd left for dinner on November 14th, our anniversary. It was now November 22nd. 8 days had passed. We'd been trapped on that impossible stretch of road for 8 days, though we'd experienced maybe 6 hours of subjective time. We'd driven in circles at mile marker 38, infinity for over a week while the world moved on without us. Our phones had 37 missed calls each. My boss had filed a missing person report. Michael's brother had organized a search party. The police had found our car on restaurant security cameras leaving the lodge's parking lot, but had no footage of us arriving anywhere after. We'd simply vanished for 8 days. We never told anyone the full truth. What would we say? that we'd been trapped at an infinity mile marker, that we'd seen a void where our town should be and driven through headlights that had no vehicle. They'd think we'd had a breakdown, drugged our anniversary dinner drinks. Foe was manufactured a shared delusion. We told the police we didn't remember, trauma-induced amnesia, maybe we'd been drugged. We woke up in our car in our driveway with no memory of the intervening week. They investigated, found nothing, eventually closed the case as unexplained. But I remember every second. The infinity symbol, the void, the floating lights, the feeling of time becoming elastic and meaningless. And here's what keeps me awake at night. Last week, I was researching mountain highway history for a magazine article I'm writing. I found references to Route 221's construction in the 1950s. The highway originally had different numbering before a renovation in 1973 reorganized the mile markers. In the original system, there was no mile marker 38. The markers went from 37 directly to 39 because surveyors discovered that the mountain's magnetic properties made that particular mile stretch impossible to accurately measure. Compasses spun. GPS equipment malfunctioned. They argued for 3 years about how to document a mile of road that seemed to be a different length every time they measured it. Finally, they just skipped it, pretended it didn't exist, went straight from 37 to 39. But that mile of road is still there. It still exists, even though no marker acknowledges it. A mile that can't be measured, can't be pinned down, can't be contained by normal numbers. And sometimes, late at night, I think, what if we weren't driving in circles at all? What if mile marker 38, infinity, is real? What if there are an infinite number of variations of that mile, overlapping, existing simultaneously, and we just slipped into one of them? A version where time moves differently, where 8 days pass in 6 hours, where voids replace valleys and headlights float without cars. Michael doesn't like when I theorize. He wants to forget, but I can't. Because 2 nights ago, I had to drive Route 221 after dark. I had no choice. A friend's medical emergency, I needed to get to the hospital. I drove carefully, watching for mile marker 37, my heart hammering. When I passed it, the next marker was 39. Normal, sequential, the road I knew. But for just a moment, half a second, maybe less, I saw another marker in the fog beside the road. Smaller. Half buried in underbrush like it had been there much longer than the official markers. It was weathered almost to illegibility, but I could just make out the number. 38, infinity. Then I blinked and it was gone. I don't drive Route 221 after dark anymore. I don't care if it adds 2 hours to any trip. I don't care if it's an emergency, because that mile is still out there. That infinite mile that can't be measured or understood or escaped. And I think we got lucky. I think we found our way back to the right version of the road, the real world, through pure chance. But others haven't been so lucky. Sometimes, late at night, I search for missing person reports from these mountains. And I find them, people who disappeared on mountain highways. Cars found abandoned. No signs of struggle, just gone. And when I map where their cars were found, I see a pattern. They're always near sections of road where the mile markers skip numbers, where the official distance doesn't quite match the surveyed distance, where, once upon a time, engineers couldn't agree on how to measure the space, places where infinity might be leaking through. We survived mile marker 38, infinity. We drove through impossible fog and counted time in contradictions and somehow found our way home. But the marker is still out there. The infinite mile still exists. And I wonder how many people are still driving it, trapped at an impossible number, circling forever through fog that never moves beneath a sky with no stars. I wonder if they know that only 8 days have passed in the real world, or if they've been counting years. I wonder if they'll ever find mile marker 37 or 39 again. I wonder if we were ever supposed to leave at all. You ever hear about the protocol? That's what old Dan asked me on my first run through the Blue Ridge section, back in 1993. I was 22 years old, fresh CDL license in my wallet, eager to prove I could handle the mountain routes that made veteran drivers nervous. Dan was training me, 63 years old, face like weathered leather, hands that had gripped a steering wheel through more miles than most people would drive in 10 lifetimes. Protocol for what? I asked, watching him navigate a sharp switchback with casual expertise. The hitchhiker protocol. Dan kept his eyes on the road. Specific rules for this stretch. Between mile markers 90 and 105, you follow the protocol no matter what. No exceptions. I'd heard about unspoken trucker rules before. Don't stop at certain rest stops. Avoid specific truck stops after dark, that sort of thing. Usually based on actual dangers, places where trucks got robbed, areas where lot lizards were actually cops running stings. Made sense to learn those. What's the protocol? I asked. Dan was quiet for a long moment, the only sound the diesel rumble and rain hammering the windshield. We were hauling paper goods from Tennessee to Virginia, a routine run I'd make hundreds of times over the years. But that night, in that storm, Dan's silence felt heavy with something worse than just caution. Between markers 90 and 105, he finally said, you don't stop for hitchhikers. Not after midnight. You see someone on the side of the road, you keep your eyes forward. You don't slow down, you don't make eye contact, you don't acknowledge them in any way. And if you see a woman in a yellow raincoat, he paused. You keep your foot steady on the gas and you don't look at her. Not even in your mirrors, you drive past like she doesn't exist. Why? What happens if you pick her up? You don't pick her up. That's the point of the protocol. You don't pick up anyone on that stretch. But what happens if someone does? Dan's hands tightened on the wheel. Nothing good. That's all you need to know. Follow the protocol and you'll be fine. Break it. He shrugged. Well, there's a reason the protocol exists. We passed mile marker 90, about 20 minutes later. I watched carefully, half expecting to see someone standing on the shoulder. But the road was empty, just rain and darkness and the white dashes of lane markers reflecting our lights. Nothing happened that night, or the next 50 times I drove that route. I followed the protocol because Dan had taught it to me, and you respect the knowledge of drivers who have survived longer than you've been alive. But privately, I figured it was superstition, the kind of story truckers tell to spook rookies. Then, in 1997, I saw her for the first time. It was 3:20 a.m., pouring rain, the kind of storm that makes you lean forward and squint even with wipers on full speed. I was hauling furniture, making good time, approaching mile marker 95. That's when my headlights caught her. A woman standing on the shoulder. Yellow raincoat bright as a warning light, hood up, face shadowed, thumb out in the universal gesture of hitchhiking. My foot instinctively moved toward the brake. She was soaked, alone, middle of nowhere in a storm that could kill you from exposure. Every decent instinct said to stop and help, but Dan's voice echoed in my head. Keep your eyes forward. Don't slow down. Don't acknowledge her. I kept my foot steady on the gas. Forced my eyes to stay straight ahead, not even glancing at the mirrors. Drove past at exactly 60 miles per hour, my hands white-knuckled on the wheel. In my peripheral vision, I saw her hood turn to follow my truck as I passed. Nothing else happened. No sudden appearance in my cab, no supernatural events, no vindication of the protocol. Just a woman in a yellow raincoat getting smaller in my mirrors until the rain swallowed her completely. I called Dan the next morning. I saw her, the woman in the yellow raincoat. Silence on the line then. Did you stop? No, followed the protocol exactly. Good, that's good. He sounded relieved. You keep following it every single time. Dan, who is she? What happens if you stop? I don't know who she is, or was. Been appearing on that stretch since before I started driving it. Heard stories from drivers in the 70s about her. As for what happens? Another long pause. In 30 years, I've heard of 5 drivers who picked her up. None of them are driving anymore. 2 quit the profession entirely, won't talk about it. One's in a psychiatric facility, the other 2. What? Disappeared. Trucks found abandoned, engines running, driver doors wide open. No signs of struggle, just gone. I saw her 3 more times over the next decade. Always at night, always in rain, always between markers 90 and 105. Always the same yellow raincoat, same posture, thumb out. And every single time I followed the protocol, eyes forward, steady speed, no acknowledgement. The protocol worked. I was fine. She was a strange fixture of that route, unsettling but manageable if you knew the rules. Then, 6 months ago, I took on a trainee. Kid named Marcus, 24 years old, good head on his shoulders, respectful, eager to learn. He reminded me of myself at that age, confident enough to handle the job, but humble enough to listen to veteran drivers. We were 3 weeks into his training when I taught him the protocol. This is going to sound like superstition, I told him as we approached mile marker 90 on a rainy October night. But you follow this anyway. Between here and marker 105, you don't stop for hitchhikers after midnight. And if you see a woman in a yellow raincoat, you keep your eyes forward and don't acknowledge her existence. You got that. Marcus nodded, but I saw the skepticism in his eyes. Same skepticism I'd had 30 years ago. You've seen her, this yellow raincoat woman. 4 times. Always follow the protocol and nothing happens. That's the point. We drove through that stretch without incident. No hitchhikers, no yellow raincoat, just rain and darkness and the hypnotic rhythm of wipers. Marcus seemed disappointed, like I'd built up a legend that failed to materialize. 2 weeks later, Marcus passed his final assessments. He was ready for solo runs. I shook his hand, gave him the standard advice about staying alert and managing fatigue, and sent him out on his first unaccompanied route. It included the Blue Ridge section. The call came at 3:47 a.m. Marcus's voice was shaking so badly I could barely understand him. I picked her up, he said. Oh God, I picked her up. My blood went cold. What did you do? She was standing there, just like you described, yellow raincoat, and it was pouring, and I thought it was just a story, just superstition, and she was a real person who needed help, so I stopped and I picked her up. Where is she now? Gone, she's gone, but his voice broke. When I pulled over, she got in the passenger seat. Didn't say anything, just nodded thank you. I asked where she was headed, and she said mile marker 97. 5, could I drop her there? So I said, sure, no problem, it's just a couple miles ahead. Marcus, breathe. What happened next? We drove in silence. I tried to make small talk, but she didn't respond, just sat there with her hood up, staring straight ahead. I figured she was shy or traumatized or something. When we reached marker 97, 5, I pulled over and said, here we are. I turned to say goodbye and he stopped, breathing hard. And what? The passenger seat was empty. She wasn't there. I jumped out, looked around the cab, checked the mirrors, nothing, just gone. But the seat was soaking wet and there was this smell. He gagged. Like something dead, like rot and mud and decay. I closed my eyes. Get to a truck stop. Get somewhere with other people and lights. Stay on the phone with me. There's more, Marcus whispered. When I got back in the truck and checked my phone, I had a notification. Photo upload, but I didn't take any photos. What was the photo? Me, in the driver's seat, taken from the passenger seat while I was driving. You can see me in profile, focused on the road. But in the rearview mirror in the photo, you can see the reflection of whoever took the picture. And there's nothing there. The passenger seat in the reflection is empty, but the angle someone had to be sitting there to take that photo. Something was sitting there, invisible, taking pictures of me. I talked Marcus through getting to a truck stop, staying around other drivers, not sleeping in his cab. When he was finally in a 24-hour diner surrounded by people, I told him what I knew about the protocol and why it existed. You broke it, I said. You acknowledged her, stopped for her, let her in. I don't know the rules for how to undo that. What happens now? I don't know, but you call me every night after you drive that stretch. Anytime, I don't care when, you call me. For 3 days, Marcus called faithfully. Everything seemed normal. No more disappearances, no strange photos, no yellow raincoat woman. I started to hope that maybe he'd gotten lucky, maybe breaking the protocol once didn't doom you. Then the calls changed. I'm seeing her, Marcus said on the 4th night. His voice was hollow, exhausted. She's on every roadside now, not just that stretch. Every highway, every road. Always in the yellow raincoat, always watching me drive past. Have you stopped again? No, I follow the protocol now, I swear. Eyes forward, steady speed. But it doesn't matter, she's everywhere now. En route to Tennessee, I passed her 16 times. 16 different roadsides, always the same woman, always watching. Marcus, maybe you should take some time off. Talk to someone. I tried sleeping in the cab last night, he continued as if I hadn't spoken. I woke up because I felt something dripping on my face. I turned on the light and there was water, just water dripping from the sleeper cab ceiling. Filthy water that smelled like a swamp. But there's no leak, no source. I checked everything. On the 5th night, his call came at 3:15 a.m. She's in the truck, he said flatly. She's been in the truck this whole time, hasn't she? Since I picked her up. She never left, I just couldn't see her. Marcus. I can feel her now. I can feel her sitting in the passenger seat, even though it looks empty. Sometimes I can feel her breath on my neck when I'm driving. Cold. So fucking cold. And last night, I saw handprints, wet handprints, appearing on the inside of the windshield. Just appearing like someone invisible was pressing their hands against the glass. Pull over, get out of the truck, get away from... It doesn't matter where I go. His voice rose to a shout. She's not in the truck, she's with me, following me. Every time I look in a mirror, I can see her for just a second before she disappears, standing right behind me, getting closer. Marcus, listen to me. Drive to my house. Right now, I'm going to help you figure this out. I looked up the history, he said, ignoring me. The woman in the yellow raincoat. I found newspaper articles from 1952. A woman named Helen Corvin. She was hitchhiking on the Blue Ridge Parkway during a storm. A truck driver picked her up. There was an accident at mile marker 97. 5. The truck went off the road. The driver survived. Helen didn't. She was thrown from the vehicle, died on impact. Okay, so the truck driver who survived, he killed himself 3 weeks later, drove his truck off the exact same curve at mile marker 97. 5. His suicide note said he couldn't stand seeing her anymore. She was in his mirrors, in his cab, following him everywhere. He said she wanted a ride home, and she wouldn't stop asking until he gave her one. The line went silent except for Marcus's breathing. That's what she wants, he whispered. She wants me to drive her home, drive us both off that curve. Marcus, no, listen to me. We're going to. I can feel her breath on my neck right now. I can hear her voice, first time I've heard it since she got in my truck. She's whispering the same thing over and over. Mile marker 97, 5. Mile marker 97, 5. Mile marker 97, 5. Where are you right now? Blue Ridge Parkway, about 5 miles from marker 97. 5, I couldn't help it. I keep ending up on this road. I try to take other routes, but I lose time, space gets confused, and suddenly I'm here again. On this road, heading toward that marker. Get off the highway, take any exit, drive to. There are no exits. There haven't been any exits for 20 miles. Just this road going toward marker 97. 5. Marcus, you're not thinking clearly. The fatigue, the stress, you're hallucinating. There are exits, you're just not seeing them. She's sitting next to me right now. I can't see her, but I know she's there. Her hand is on the steering wheel. I can see the wheel turning, but I'm not turning it. We're heading toward the curve. Marcus, stop the truck, pull the brake, get out. She's showing me her face, he whispered. Under the hood. Oh God, oh Jesus God, what happened to her face? The line went dead. I called back immediately, straight to voicemail. I called the police, reported Marcus's location and state of mind. I got in my own truck and drove toward mile marker 97. 5, breaking every speed limit, praying I'd find him pulled over safely. State police found his truck at 5:47 a.m. It was parked on the shoulder at mile marker 97. 5, engine running, driver's door wide open, headlights on. The cab was empty. Marcus was gone. They searched for 3 days, brought in dogs, helicopters, volunteer search parties. They found nothing. No footprints leading away from the truck, no signs of struggle, no indication of where he might have gone. He simply vanished from a running vehicle in the middle of nowhere. The police found one piece of evidence, Marcus's phone, left on the driver's seat. When they checked the photos, they found hundreds of images taken over the past week. All selfies from the passenger seat perspective, showing Marcus driving. In every single photo, if you looked at the rearview mirror reflection, you could see a woman in a yellow raincoat sitting in the passenger seat. She got clearer in each photo. In the final picture, taken at 3:42 a.m. on the night Marcus disappeared, her face was finally visible under the hood. The police wouldn't describe it to me. They just said it wasn't the face of anyone living, and that they'd sent the image to be analyzed for signs of photo manipulation because what it showed couldn't be real. That was 3 months ago. They never found Marcus. The official investigation is cold now, classified as a missing person with no leads. I still drive the Blue Ridge section. It's my route, has been for 30 years. I follow the protocol exactly. Eyes forward, steady speed. No acknowledgement between mile markers 90 and 105. But now when I drive that stretch, I see 2 figures in yellow raincoats. Helen Corvin, who died in 1952. And Marcus, wearing a yellow raincoat I never saw him own, standing beside her on the shoulder, thumb out, waiting for a ride. They're always at mile marker 97. 5. And every time I drive past, eyes forward, following the protocol, I can feel them turning to watch my truck disappear into the darkness. Last week, a new trainee started. Young guy, good attitude, reminds me of Marcus. I'm teaching him the protocol today. He's giving me that same skeptical look Marcus had, that same expression I probably gave old Dan 30 years ago. Between markers 90 and 105, I tell him, you don't stop for hitchhikers after midnight. And if you see anyone in a yellow raincoat, you keep your eyes forward and don't acknowledge them. Not even in your mirrors. You drive past like they don't exist. Why? He asks, what happens if you pick them up? I think about Marcus's empty truck, about his voice on the phone, hollow with terror, about the photos showing something that got clearer and clearer until it was close enough to take him. You don't pick them up, I say. That's the protocol. You don't pick up anyone on that stretch. But what happens if someone does? I grip the steering wheel tighter. Ahead, mile marker 90 is approaching. Nothing good, I tell him. That's all you need to know. Follow the protocol and you'll be fine. I don't tell him about Marcus. I don't tell him that following the protocol only works until you break it once. I don't tell him that there are now 2 figures in yellow raincoats, and I'm terrified that number will keep growing. I just teach him the rules and pray he's smarter than Marcus was. Pray he never stops to help. Because on the Blue Ridge Parkway, between mile markers 90 and 105, there are some people you don't pick up, even if they look like they need help. Even if every human instinct says to stop. Especially if they're wearing yellow raincoats and standing at mile marker 97. 5, you follow the protocol. You keep your eyes forward. And you drive past like they don't exist. Because once you acknowledge them, once you break that rule, they'll never stop following you. And eventually, they'll make sure you join them on that roadside, waiting, in a yellow raincoat, for the next driver who breaks the protocol. How long have we been on this detour? Jake's question hung in the fog-filled car and none of us could answer. Sarah checked her phone from the backseat, 1:45 a.m., but that didn't feel right. Hadn't it been 1:45 when we first saw the detour signs? Maybe 20 minutes. Michael offered from the passenger seat, but his voice carried no conviction. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, watching the gravel road deteriorate further. We'd been following official-looking detour signs, orange and white, reflective, professional, off the main Blue Ridge Parkway for how long? Time felt slippery, unreliable. There's another sign, Emma said from the back, pointing. Detour continues, follow arrows. This is bullshit, Sarah muttered. We should have hit the main road again by now. Turn around, Chris. I wanted to, but every time I found a wide enough spot to turn the car around, we'd somehow end up facing the same direction, following the same detour arrows, like the road was bending reality to keep us moving forward. "GPS is still dead," Michael said, tapping his phone uselessly. "Mine too," Emma confirmed. "No signal at all." The fog pressed against the windows, thick as cotton, reducing visibility to almost nothing. Our headlights carved weak tunnels through the gray, illuminating gravel road and dense trees and nothing else. That's when we found the first car. It was pulled off to the side, barely visible through the fog. A late 90s sedan, driver's door hanging open, interior light long dead. I slowed down, my stomach tightening with unease. "Should we check if they need help?" Emma asked. "Something's wrong with that car," Sarah said. "Look at the tires." She was right. The tires were flat and rotted, the kind of decay that takes years. Through the dirty windshield, I could see the steering wheel covered in a thick layer of undisturbed dust. "That car's been here a long time," I said. We drove past slowly. In my rearview mirror, the abandoned sedan dissolved back into fog. "How long is this fucking detour?" Jake asked. Another sign appeared. "Detour continues, follow arrows." Then another car. This one was newer, early 2000s Honda, also abandoned, door open, headlights off, more rotted tires, more dust. "Okay, this is freaky," Michael said. We found the third car 50 feet later, then a fourth, then a fifth. All abandoned, all doors open, all showing signs of years of exposure to elements, makes and models spanning decades. I spotted a 1970s Camaro with its paint faded to ghost colors, a 1980s station wagon with rust eating through the panels, a 2010s Toyota that looked almost new except for the dust and the flat tires. "We need to turn around," Sarah said, her voice rising. "Right fucking now." "I'm trying." I snapped, spinning the wheel to head back the way we'd come. The road curved smoothly and somehow impossibly. We ended up facing forward again, following the same fucking arrows deeper into the fog. What the hell? I slammed on the brakes. "Did you see that?" I turned completely around. "The road doesn't go back," Emma whispered. "It only goes forward." We sat in stunned silence, engine idling, fog swirling in the headlights. The impossible reality of our situation settled over us like a weight. We were trapped on a road that refused to let us turn around, following detour signs that led nowhere, surrounded by abandoned vehicles from multiple decades. "Look at that one," Jake pointed to a car we were passing. A Tesla Model 3, driver's door open, completely empty. "That's a 2019 model at the oldest. That car shouldn't be here." But it was, abandoned like all the others. "How many cars have we passed?" Michael asked. I'd been counting. 23. 23 people, Sarah said. 23 people who followed this detour and abandoned their cars. Where the fuck did they go? That's when I saw the writing. On the dirty windshield of the next abandoned car, a 2015 Subaru, someone had written in the grime, "Turn around, turn around, turn around." My blood went cold. More cars, more messages scratched into dirt, carved into paint. "No town ahead. The detour never ends. Follow the signs. They move behind you." "They move behind you," Emma read aloud. "What does that mean?" Michael suddenly grabbed my arm. "Chris, stop the car." I hit the brakes. "What?" "Look behind us." I checked the rearview mirror. Through the fog, I could just make out the detour sign we'd passed maybe 200 feet back. "Detour continues, follow arrows." "Okay, so." "Watch it." We sat staring at the mirror. For 10 seconds, nothing happened. Then the sign, I swear to God, folded up. The reflective orange and white surface collapsed against an articulated metal post that bent like an elbow, like a joint, and the whole thing rotated and walked deeper into the forest on multiple segmented legs. Sarah screamed. "What the fuck was that?" Jake shouted. The sign disappeared into the trees, its metal legs picking through the underbrush with horrible deliberation, carrying its arrow-marked surface away like some kind of mechanical insect. "The signs are alive," Emma whispered. "The signs are moving. That's what the message meant. They move the signs behind us so we can't find our way back." "Geo," Sarah screamed. "Drive, get us out of here." I floored the accelerator. The car fishtailed on the gravel, then caught traction and lunged forward. More abandoned cars flashed past, more warnings written in desperation. "They're hurting us. Keep driving equals death. Stay in your car or die." "Wait, go back," Michael shouted. "Back to that last one." "What? No. We need to find a way out." "Geo, back." I slammed the brakes and reversed. Michael jumped out before I'd fully stopped. "Michael!" Emma screamed. He ran to a newer car, a 2018 Honda Civic, and yanked open the door, then immediately staggered back, gagging, hands over his mouth. I got out against every survival instinct. The smell hit me before I reached the car, decay, sweet and thick and wrong. Inside the Civic was a driver's license on the seat. The photo showed a man maybe 30 years old, fit, smiling. The license was dated 1987. Belted into the driver's seat was a corpse, mummified, desiccated, fingers worn down to bone from clawing at the windshield. The remains looked elderly, ancient, like they'd been there for 100 years instead of 35. "Oh, Jesus!" Michael vomited into the gravel. I checked the date on the license again. Expired 1992. This man had followed the detour in 1987 and, what? Stayed in his car for 35 years, aging to death while the world moved on. "Look at the odometer," Emma said from behind me, making me jump. I looked. The digital display showed an impossible number, 847,392 miles. "That's not possible," I said. "That car hasn't even existed long enough to put that many miles on it, even if you drove 24/7. "Unless time works differently here," Emma said. "Unless he's been driving in circles for decades, burning thousands of miles while barely any time passes in the real world." A sound made us all freeze, mechanical clicking, multiple sources coming from the forest around us. The detour signs, moving, repositioning. We ran back to my car and I gunned it, driving faster than was safe on the dark gravel road. More abandoned vehicles flew past, more warnings, more evidence of people who'd followed this endless detour to their deaths. "Stop!" Jake suddenly shouted. I hit the brakes hard enough to throw us all forward against our seatbelts. Ahead, the road ended. Just ended. No fork, no turn, no continuation. The gravel road stopped at a wall of dense forest, trees packed so tightly together nothing could pass through. But directly in front of that impossible dead end was another sign. "Detour continues, follow arrows." An arrow pointed straight into the impenetrable wall of trees. "This can't be real," Sarah whispered. I put the car in reverse, backed up 50 feet, turned around successfully, finally, and headed back the direction we'd come. 100 feet later, the road ended at an identical wall of trees. Another sign. "Detour continues, follow arrows." We were trapped in a dead-end section of road maybe 200 feet long, walls of forest on 3 sides, our car and a dozen abandoned vehicles the only things visible through the fog. That's when the mechanical clicking got louder, all around us. Dozens of sources. The detour signs were coming. Through the fog, I saw them, metal posts with articulated joints, bent like insect legs, carrying their reflective signs through the trees. 10, 15, 20 of them converging on our trapped stretch of road from all directions. Out of the car, I shouted, "Into the forest, Gio!" We ran, crashed through underbrush into darkness between trees, branches tearing at our clothes and skin. Behind us, I heard metal scraping on metal, that horrible clicking, the signs pursuing on their segmented legs. "Don't stop!" Michael gasped. The forest was wrong. The trees were too close together, too uniform, their trunks perfectly straight like they'd been planted rather than grown naturally. And they went on forever. We ran for what felt like hours, gasping for breath, and never found an edge or clearing or anything but more identical trees. Eventually, we had to stop, collapsing against trunks, sides heaving. Did we lose them? Emma wheezed. I listened, no mechanical clicking, just our labored breathing and the sound of, "Do you hear that?" Jake asked. I did. A car engine, distant but definitely there. We looked at each other in exhausted disbelief, then moved toward the sound. The trees thinned, thank God, and we stumbled out onto the same gravel road. My car sat right where we'd left it, engines still running. The same abandoned vehicles surrounded us. "No," Sarah said. No, we ran for miles, we went in a straight line." "The forest looped us back," I said numbly. "Everything loops back. There's no out. There's only this road." A detour sign stood 10 feet away. We hadn't noticed it before. Maybe it hadn't been there before, it said. "Detour continues, follow arrows." "Fuck your detour." Michael screamed, grabbing a rock and hurling it at the sign. The rock bounced off harmlessly. The sign didn't react, but then it moved. The post bent at 3 distinct joints, the sign swiveling to point its arrow directly at us. Then it took a step forward on segmented metal legs. We scrambled into the car. I threw it in drive and accelerated, not knowing where we were going, just needing to move. The forest was impossible. Turning around was impossible, but maybe we could find something if we just kept going forward. "Wait, stop." Emma grabbed my shoulder. "Look." Ahead in the fog, I saw lights. Real lights, not headlights, street lights. And beyond them, I could see the reflective signs of a highway, the blessed sight of normal road markers. "The main highway," Jake shouted. "We found it." I pushed the accelerator down, our car bouncing violently on the rutted gravel. The lights got closer. 50 feet. 30. 20. We burst out of the fog onto smooth asphalt, proper lane markings, a real highway with real lights, and I slammed on the brakes, tires screaming. We were back on the Blue Ridge Parkway, the same stretch where we'd first seen the detour signs. I recognized that specific curve, that distinctive rock face. "We're back," I whispered. "We're actually back." Sarah was crying. Emma was laughing with hysterical relief. Michael just stared ahead like he couldn't process what had happened. I checked my phone. 1:52 a.m. 7 minutes since we'd turned onto the detour. 7 minutes, even though we'd driven for what felt like hours, discovered dozens of abandoned cars, fled into an impossible forest. "Let's go," I said. "Let's get the fuck away from here." I drove, normally, on a normal road with normal mile markers. After 20 minutes of blessed normalcy, We stopped at a 24-hour gas station and sat in the fluorescent lights, surrounded by normal people buying normal snacks, and tried to process what we'd experienced. "We need to report this," Emma said. "Those abandoned cars, that corpse, the signs." "And tell them what?" Michael asked. "That we followed a magical detour to nowhere and signs chased us on metal legs. They'll think we're on drugs." "But there are people trapped there," Sarah said. "That man in the Civic, the person who wrote those warnings, are dead," I said quietly. "They're decades dead, and if we try to go back to show anyone, do you really think we'll find it?" "We didn't go back. We drove home and tried to forget, but I can't forget. Especially because of what I discovered 3 days later while researching on my own. In 1987, a man named David Winters disappeared while driving through the Blue Ridge Mountains. His car was never found. In 1993, the Patterson family vanished on the same stretch of highway. Again, no vehicles ever located. In 2004, 3 college students. In 2011, an elderly couple. The list goes on. 23 people over the past 40 years gone without a trace while driving the Blue Ridge Parkway. 23 abandoned cars, doors open, waiting on an impossible detour. And here's what keeps me awake. Yesterday, I drove past that same stretch of parkway in broad daylight, just checking, just to see. There were no detour signs. None. The road was clear and normal and completely unremarkable. But today, I checked my car's odometer out of paranoia. Before the detour, 47,392 miles. After the detour, 47,399 miles. We only drove maybe 3 or 4 miles total on that gravel road. So why does my odometer say we drove 7? And why, when I checked the back seat this morning, did I find an orange reflective arrow sticker, the kind used on road signs, stuck to the floor mat, as if something had left a piece of itself behind? "Detour continues," it reads in small print I hadn't noticed before. I scraped it off and threw it away. This morning, I found it stuck to my steering wheel. I've been a pharmaceutical sales rep for 18 years. My territory covers western North Carolina and eastern Tennessee, which means I've driven through the Blue Ridge Mountains alone at night more times than I can count. Probably 500 trips, maybe more. I know these roads the way you know the layout of your own house. Every curve, every steep descent, every overlook where you can pull off and check your phone signal. I'm not superstitious. I don't believe in ghosts or cryptids or any of that Appalachian folklore nonsense. I'm a rational person. I deal in pharmaceuticals, in clinical trials and FDA approvals and evidence-based medicine. I believe in what can be measured and tested. But I know what I heard in my backseat last Thursday night, and I know it wasn't my imagination. The drive had started normally. I'd finished a late dinner meeting with a hospital administrator in Asheville. These dinners always run long, lots of wine, lots of careful relationship building that's really just expensive bribery with better PR. By the time I got to my car, it was 11:47 p.m. I had a 2-hour drive back to my hotel in Johnson City, Tennessee, most of it on winding mountain highways with no cell service. Standard trip. I'd done it dozens of times. I pulled out of the restaurant parking lot, merged onto I-40, then transitioned to Route 26 for the mountain crossing. Traffic was light, maybe 5 cars the entire first hour. By the time I hit the real mountain section, Dead Man's Pass, I was completely alone on the road. Dead Man's Pass isn't its official name, just what locals call the 15-mile stretch of Route 26 that climbs through the steepest part of the mountains. Sharp curves, steep drop-offs, minimal guardrails. During the day, it's beautiful. At night, it's just darkness and headlights and the occasional reflection of eyes in the forest. Deer, hopefully, though you never really know. I'd driven maybe 5 miles into Dead Man's Pass when I first felt it. That primitive sensation of being watched. You know the feeling, your hindbrain screaming that you're not alone, that something is observing you. I chalked it up to fatigue and isolation. Your mind plays tricks when you're tired and alone in the dark, but the feeling intensified. I checked my rearview mirror compulsively, scanning the backseat. Empty, of course, just my briefcase and a box of pharmaceutical samples exactly where I'd left them. I turned on the radio for company, found a station playing classic rock, turned it up loud enough to drown out the oppressive silence. That helped for maybe 10 minutes. Then I heard it. Breathing. Not my own breathing, I was holding my breath to listen. This was coming from behind me, from the back seat. Slow, rhythmic, heavy breathing. In, out, like someone sleeping or trying very hard to remain still. My heart rate spiked immediately. I jerked around to look at the back seat empty. No one there, just my briefcase and the sample box. "You're tired," I said aloud, my voice embarrassingly shaky. "You're hearing the heater, or the wind, or..." I turned off the radio. Turned off the heater, cracked the window to eliminate any air circulation sounds. The breathing continued. In, out, slow, steady, definitely coming from directly behind my seat. "Okay, this is ridiculous," I muttered, but my hands were gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles had gone white. I checked the mirror again, back seat empty. I even tilted the mirror down to see the floor. Nothing. But the breathing didn't stop. I tried to rationalize it. Psychological phenomenon. Auditory hallucination brought on by stress and fatigue. The meeting had been tense, I'd had 3 glasses of wine, my sleep schedule had been disrupted all week. This was my brain misfiring, creating sounds that weren't there. Except it sounded so real, so physical. I could hear the slight whistle at the end of each exhale, the wet quality of air moving through a throat. Mile after mile, the breathing continued. My rational explanations started to crumble. I couldn't ignore it, couldn't unhear it. It was there, constant and undeniable, the sound of someone else in my car. I thought about pulling over. But Dead Man's Pass has almost no shoulder, just narrow road and guardrail and then nothing, a sheer drop into darkness. And honestly, what would I do if I stopped? Get out and check the backseat with my phone's flashlight. What if something was there? What if I was having a psychotic break and there was nothing, and I was just standing on the side of a dangerous mountain road at 1 a.m. losing my mind? So I kept driving, eyes forward, hands on the wheel, trying to ignore the breathing that filled my car like a second heartbeat. Around 1:15 a.m., it changed. The breathing became raspy, wet, like someone struggling with fluid in their lungs, each inhale a rattling gasp, each exhale a gurgling wheeze. The sound of someone drowning in their own fluids, struggling for air. "Stop it," I said aloud, my voice cracking. "Stop, stop, stop." But it didn't stop. It got worse. I heard movement, subtle, just fabric shifting, weight redistributing, like someone leaning forward in the backseat. I couldn't stop myself from looking in the mirror. The backseat was still empty, but I could feel it now. Actually feel it. The presence of something directly behind me, inches from my head, separated only by the thin barrier of my seat. My logical mind was screaming that this wasn't possible. You can't feel something that isn't there. Feeling requires matter, physical presence, an actual object taking up space. But evolution doesn't care about logic. My lizard brain was absolutely certain that something was in my backseat, and it was leaning forward, getting closer. The wet, rattling breathing continued. And then I felt it. Cold air on the back of my neck. Not the cold air from my cracked window, that was coming from the side. This was a focused exhalation, a breath hitting the skin at the base of my skull. Impossibly cold, carrying a smell like earth and stagnant water and decay. I made a sound I'm not proud of, half scream, half sob. My foot slammed down on the accelerator. The car lunged forward, the speedometer climbing to 60, 70, 80 miles per hour on roads that demanded 45 maximum. I didn't care. I needed out of Dead Man's Pass, needed lights and people and civilization. The breathing continued behind me, that horrible wet rattling, and I could still feel that cold spot on my neck where something had exhaled against my skin. The curves came faster than I could properly navigate them. I nearly lost control twice, tires screaming as I barely made turns that should have sent me through the guardrail and into the void. Some survival instinct took over, muscle memory from hundreds of trips through these mountains, and my hands moved automatically while my conscious mind was occupied with the terror of what was breathing behind me. 15 miles of Dead Man's Pass, and I drove the last 8 in about 6 minutes, absolutely reckless. I deserved to crash, but I didn't. I careened around the final curve, and there, blessed, beautiful sight, was a gas station. 24 hours, fluorescent lights blazing, 2 other cars parked at the pumps. I nearly crashed into the parking lot, slammed on the brakes, threw the car into park, and literally fell out of the driver's seat onto the pavement. Scrambled away from the car on my hands and knees like something was chasing me. The other customers stared. I didn't care. I stood there, shaking, staring at my car. The backseat windows reflected the fluorescent lights. I couldn't see inside. The gas station attendant came out. "Sir, are you okay? Do you need me to call?" "My backseat," I gasped. "Check my backseat. Tell me if you see anything." He gave me a concerned look but walked to my car, opened the rear door, looked inside. "Just a briefcase and a box, man. You want me to grab them for you?" "You don't see anything else? Don't hear anything?" "Like what?" I didn't answer. I approached the car slowly, phone flashlight on, and looked into the backseat. Empty. Completely empty. The briefcase, the sample box, nothing else. I checked the floor, under the seats. Nothing. But the rear passenger window had condensation on the inside, which didn't make sense. The interior should be warm and dry. Condensation forms when warm air hits cold glass, or when someone breathes on glass. I aimed my flashlight at the condensation. There was a handprint. A perfect handprint, small, pressed against the glass from the inside. 4 fingers and a thumb, child-sized. "Do you see that?" I asked the attendant, pointing. He looked, shrugged. "Yeah, looks like a kid's handprint. You got kids?" "No, I don't. I've never had kids in this car." "Maybe a previous owner, or someone touched it before you bought it." "I bought this car new 2 years ago." He didn't have an answer for that. Neither did I. I stood there staring at that handprint until the attendant went back inside, clearly deciding I was weird but harmless. I took photos of it with my phone. Then, hands shaking, I wiped it away with my sleeve. The condensation smeared, but I could still see the outline. Like whatever had made it had pressed harder than condensation should allow, leaving an impression in the glass itself. I didn't want to get back in that car. But what choice did I have? Call a friend to drive 2 hours to pick me up because I'd gotten spooked? Abandon a $40,000 vehicle at a gas station because I heard breathing? I got back in, left all the doors unlocked, drove the remaining 30 miles to my hotel with my heart pounding, checking the rearview mirror every 5 seconds. The breathing didn't return, but when I got to the hotel and parked, I checked the back seat one more time. The condensation was back, and this time there were 2 handprints, both child-sized, both pressed against the window from the inside. The next morning, I convinced myself I'd had some kind of stress-induced episode. The wine at dinner, the fatigue, the isolation of night driving, my brain had manufactured the experience. The handprints were probably just, I don't know, some weird condensation effect I didn't understand. I drove to my next meeting. Everything was fine. Normal. No breathing, no cold spots, no handprints, until I stopped at a rest area to use the bathroom. When I came back to the car, a woman was standing near my vehicle, staring at it with an expression I couldn't quite read. Concern, recognition. "Excuse me," I said. "Can I help you?" She was maybe 60, gray hair, kind face. "I'm sorry for staring, but I noticed your license plate. Tennessee, right?" "Yes." "You drove Route 26 last night." "Through Dead Man's Pass." My stomach clenched. "How did you?" "I'm sorry," she said again. "This is going to sound crazy, but did you experience anything unusual on that drive?" I stared at her. "Why would you ask that?" "Because I work at the gas station you stopped at. The 24-hour one at the end of the pass. I wasn't working last night, but my nephew was. He told me about a man who ran out of his car, terrified, talking about his backseat. Tennessee plates. I remembered because..." She hesitated. "Because it happens sometimes." "What happens?" "People driving through Dead Man's Pass at night, reporting breathing in their backseats, feeling like someone's behind them, sometimes seeing handprints on the windows." She looked at my rear window. Child-sized handprints. I felt cold all over. "What is it? What causes it?" She shook her head. "Nobody knows for sure, but 4 years ago there was an accident on Route 26. A minivan. Family coming back from vacation, mother, father, 2 kids. It was late at night, raining, and they went off the road at one of the sharp curves. The van rolled down the mountain. Took rescue crews 5 hours to reach them. And the parents died on impact. The kids..." Her voice caught. "The kids survived the initial crash, but they were trapped in the backseat, injured, unable to get out. They were alive for at least 2 hours, maybe longer, before they succumbed to their injuries. Alone in the dark, calling for their parents who couldn't answer. I thought I might be sick. Since then," she continued, "some drivers report, well, what you experienced. Breathing, children's voices, small handprints, always on that stretch of road, always late at night, like they're still looking for a ride home." "That's," I started to say, "impossible," but the word died in my throat, because I'd heard the breathing, felt the cold breath, seen the handprints. "I know how it sounds," she said, "but I've heard the story from maybe a dozen drivers over the past 4 years. All of them describe the same things, and they all stop at our gas station, right at the end of Dead Man's Pass, like that's as far as the children could make it before the rescue crews found them." She handed me a small card, her name and a phone number. "If you need someone to talk to who won't think you're crazy, call me, and maybe..." She looked at my backseat windows again. "Maybe say a prayer for them. I think they're just lost. still trying to get home. She walked to her own car, leaving me standing in the rest area parking lot, staring at my vehicle. That night, in my hotel room, I researched the accident, found the news articles from 4 years ago. Family of 4 killed in Route 26 accident. The Harper family was returning from vacation when their vehicle left the road at approximately 11:40 p.m. in heavy rain. Emergency responders reached the vehicle at 4:15 a.m. Michael Harper, 42, and Susan Harper, 38, were pronounced dead at the scene. Their children, Emma Harper, 8, and Noah Harper, 6, were found alive but critically injured in the backseat. Both children died before rescue crews could extract them from the vehicle. The article included a photo of the family. I stared at it for a long time. Emma and Noah Harper, smiling in happier times. Small hands. The kind of hands that might leave child-sized prints on car windows. I looked at the photos I'd taken of the handprints on my rear window, measured them against images of typical 8-year-old and 6-year-old hand sizes. Perfect match. I drive through the Blue Ridge Mountains regularly for work. I have no choice, it's my territory. But I don't drive Route 26 anymore. I take the long way, adding 90 minutes to my trip because I can't face Dead Man's Pass again. Not because I'm scared, but because the last time I drove through, 2 weeks ago in broad daylight, telling myself I was being ridiculous, I heard it again. Breathing. But this time it was different. Not the labored, wet breathing of someone injured and dying. Softer, quieter, the breathing of children sleeping peacefully. And when I checked my rearview mirror, I saw them, just for a second, maybe less. 2 shapes in the backseat, translucent, barely there. A girl and a younger boy. They weren't looking at me. They were looking out the window at the passing forest, the way kids do on long drives. Content. Safe. Like they'd finally found a ride home. Then they were gone. I pulled over, hands shaking, and checked the backseat. Empty. But on the rear window, written in what looked like condensation, "Thank you." In a child's handwriting. I don't know what I did. I don't know if they needed to be acknowledged, or if they needed someone to know their story, or if they just needed to take one more drive through those mountains before they could rest. But I hope, God, I hope, they're home now. Wherever home is for children who died calling for parents who couldn't answer. I deleted the woman's phone number. I don't need to talk about it. Some things you just have to carry with you. But sometimes, late at night, I think about Emma and Noah Harper, 8 and 6 years old, trapped in a backseat while life drained away. And I think about how terrifying those hours must have been, and how maybe, their last moments weren't in a crushed minivan on the side of a mountain. Maybe their last moments were in my car, safe, warm, driving through familiar mountains one more time before finally going home. I hope that's true. I really, really hope that's true. I'm writing this down for the 6th time, maybe the 7th. I keep losing track because every time I finish writing it, the details start to slip away like water through my fingers, and I have to start over. But I know something is profoundly, terrifyingly wrong, and if I don't document this now, I'm afraid I'll forget entirely. My name is Rachel Winters. I'm 28 years old. I'm a graphic designer. I drive Route 221 through the Blue Ridge Mountains twice a week for work, commuting between Boone and Asheville. I've made this drive at least 200 times over the past 2 years. 2 weeks ago, or was it 2 months? The dates keep shifting when I try to pin them down. My car overheated on a stretch of highway I'd never seen before. That's the part that should have been my first warning. A stretch of Route 221 I didn't recognize. I know this road intimately. Every curve, every overlook, every place where cell service cuts out. But that night, driving home around 2 a.m. after finishing a rush project, the road looked different. I can't describe exactly how it was different. The curves were in the wrong places. The mile markers showed numbers that didn't match my mental map. It was like driving a familiar route in a dream, where everything is almost right but fundamentally wrong in ways you can't quite articulate. Then my engine temperature light came on. I watched the needle climb into the red zone, steam starting to wisp from under the hood. I had no choice but to pull over. My phone showed no signal, not unusual for this area, and my GPS was doing something weird, displaying the road I was on as blank green space, like I was driving through terrain that officially didn't exist. That's when I saw the lights. Maybe half a mile ahead, on a stretch where I was certain there were no services for at least 50 miles, lights appeared through the trees. As I coasted forward on momentum, letting my overheating engine rest, the lights resolved into a gas station. Old-fashioned. Single pump under a flickering fluorescent canopy. Small attached convenience store with grimy windows and a weathered wooden door. The kind of place that maybe existed in the 1960s but should have been demolished decades ago. But the lights were on. The open sign glowed red in the window. I pulled into the lot, relieved despite the wrongness of it all. The lot was cracked concrete with weeds pushing through, and there were no other vehicles anywhere. The pump looked ancient analog display, no credit card reader, just a mechanical counter. I got out of my car. The air felt wrong, too still, too quiet, no insect sounds despite it being summer. The fluorescent light buzzed with a frequency that made my teeth ache. The store door opened before I reached it. A man stepped out. Maybe 60 years old, wearing a faded gas station uniform that was too clean. Pristine, actually, like it had never been worn before despite looking decades old. His smile was too wide, too many teeth showing. "Evening," he said. His voice had a weird quality, like it was coming from slightly the wrong direction. "Car trouble." "Engine overheated," I said. "Do you have water or coolant?" Of course. I'll take a look while you wait inside. Get yourself a snack, use the facilities. Won't take but a few minutes." Something about his tone bothered me. Too cheerful, too eager. But I was stranded with an overheating car in the middle of nowhere at 2 a.m. What choice did I have? "Thank you," I said and walked into the store. The interior was wrong from the first step. It looked normal, chip bags on racks, refrigerated drinks along the back wall, magazine stand by the counter. But everything was wrong in small ways. The chip bags showed flavors that didn't exist. The drink bottles had labels I'd never seen before, brands that sounded almost right but weren't quite. Coca-Cola and Pespi and Mountain Dew. The magazines were worse. I picked one up, People magazine, or it looked like People magazine, except the date on the cover read February 31st, 2023. February 31st, a date that doesn't exist. I picked up another, Time magazine, dated June 45th. Another, Sports Illustrated, dated month 13, day 67. Every single magazine showed impossible dates, months that didn't exist, day numbers that went beyond any calendar. Years that were right but formatted wrong, 2-0-2-3 with hyphens between each digit. Find what you need. The attendant's voice came from right behind me. I jumped, dropping the magazine. I hadn't heard him come back inside. He was smiling that too wide smile, standing way too close. The dates on these magazines are wrong, I said. Are they? He picked one up, looked at it like he was reading something completely normal. Look fine to me. February 31st, regular date. February doesn't have 31 days. His smile never wavered. Doesn't it? I backed away toward the door. I think I'll just wait outside by my car. Bathrooms in the back if you need it. He gestured to a hallway I hadn't noticed before. Most folks do, after a long drive. No, thank you. Suit yourself. Though we don't have a bathroom, strictly speaking. Never needed one. Nobody ever leaves long enough to need one. The words hung in the air like a threat. What do you mean, nobody leaves? His smile got wider. Impossibly wider. Just that folks tend to stay. Car trouble keeps them here. My work takes time. Sometimes a lot of time, you'll see. I walked quickly to the door and looked out at my car. He was working on it. I could see him through the grimy window, bent over my engine, doing something with tools. But wait, if he was outside, then who was standing behind me? I turned around. The store was empty, no attendant, no one at all, but I'd heard him, felt his presence. He'd been right there, right behind me, speaking in my ear. I looked back out the window. The attendant was still working on my car, whistling to himself. I watched carefully. He reached into my engine and pulled something out, wires maybe, engine components. He held them up to the light, examining them, then set them aside on the ground. He wasn't fixing my car, he was disassembling it. What are you doing? I shouted, pushing through the door. He turned, that smile bright as ever. Just a few adjustments, your engine's in bad shape. Needs quite a bit of work, could take a while. What did you just remove? Parts that needed removing. He gestured to a small pile of components on the ground. Don't worry, I'll put them back. Eventually, once I've fixed them. Could be hours, could be days. Hard to say with cars in this condition. My car was fine except for overheating. You're sabotaging it. Sabotaging? No, just fixing. Very thoroughly, very carefully. Might want to settle in. Get comfortable. Like I said, folks tend to stay a while. I looked at the parts he'd removed. I didn't know much about cars, but even I could tell those were critical components. Ignition coils, maybe. Fuel lines. Things the car absolutely needed to run. Put those back. Now. In time. All in good time. I pulled out my phone to call for help. Still no signal. I held it up, waving it around, trying to catch even one bar. Nothing. Completely dead zone. The attendant watched me with that unwavering smile. No service out here. Never is, just us, the station, and time. He said that last word with strange emphasis. Lots and lots of time. So I'm leaving. I'll walk if I have to. Walk where? You don't even know where you are. He was right. I looked around at the darkness beyond the fluorescent lights. No landmarks. No stars. I realized the sky was just blank void. No moon or stars or clouds, just empty blackness. The road stretched in both directions into darkness, so complete it looked like the asphalt simply ceased to exist beyond the light's reach. Put my car back together, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Right now, or I'm. Or you're what? Going to fight me? Call the police with your dead phone. Walk into darkness that goes nowhere. He tilted his head, and in the fluorescent glare, his features looked wrong, too symmetrical, like a mask. You're here now. This is where you are, where you'll be. The station doesn't let people leave until it's ready. The station? You mean you don't let people leave? I'm just the attendant. I work here. I've always worked here. I'll always work here. The station decides who stays and how long. I just make it comfortable." "You're insane." "AMI," he gestured at my car. "Try to start it, go ahead." Despite every instinct screaming at me not to turn my back on him, I got in my car, turned the key. The engine turned over once, a weak, grinding sound, then nothing. Dead. He disabled it completely in the few minutes he'd been working on it. I got out, keeping the car between us. "What do you want?" "Want nothing. This is just what happens here. Cars break down, I fix them. Eventually. In the meantime, folks wait. Stay. Become part of the station, it's not so bad. Plenty of snacks inside. Time works differently here, you'll see." Could be days, could be decades. Hard to tell the difference after a while. "You can't keep me here." "I'm not keeping you anywhere. You're free to leave any time." He spread his arms, gesturing at the darkness. "Walk that way, or that way, or that way. See how far you get." I looked at the road disappearing into blackness. I tried to remember where I'd come from, which direction, but the darkness was absolute and disorienting. Had I approached from the north or south? I couldn't remember. The station seemed to exist in a bubble of light surrounded by infinite void. But I had to try. I started walking down the road, away from the station. The pavement was solid under my feet, real. I walked faster, started jogging. The fluorescent lights behind me got dimmer. I ran for what felt like 10 minutes straight. When I looked back, the station was still visible, still the same apparent distance away. When I looked forward, there was only darkness. No curve in the road, no landmarks, just endless straight highway disappearing into nothing. I ran harder. My lungs burned. I had to be putting distance between myself and that place. But when I looked back, the station was exactly the same distance away. I stopped, bent over, gasping. This wasn't possible. I'd run for at least a mile, maybe 2. But the station looked exactly as far away as when I'd started, maybe a few hundred yards. I walked back. What else could I do? With each step toward the station, it seemed to pull me forward, the distance closing faster than it should. Within minutes, I was back in the parking lot, though I'd run for at least 20 minutes trying to escape. The attendant was sitting on a bench I didn't remember seeing before, still smiling. "Told you, the station decides when people leave, not before." I tried the other direction. Same result, ran forever, got nowhere, ended up back in the parking lot. I tried going into the forest on either side of the road. The trees were too dense, packed impossibly tight, and no matter which direction I walked, I'd somehow loop back to the parking lot within minutes. Every direction led back to the station. I don't know how long I've been here. My phone's clock keeps resetting. The attendant insists it's been just a few hours, but it feels like days. Or weeks. Time stretches and compresses in ways that make it impossible to track. I'm writing this in the store, using a notebook I found on the magazine rack. When I checked the notebook's price tag, it said Infinity, $99. The attendant brings me food sometimes. The snacks from the shelves, though I never see him take them, they just appear next to me. They taste like food. They satisfy hunger. But they have that same wrong quality as everything else here. I've tried sleeping in my car. When I wake up, the station looks slightly different. The pump moves. The windows show different reflections. The attendant's uniform is a different color, though he insists it's always been that color. And here's the worst part. I'm starting to forget. I know I had a life before this. A job, an apartment. Friends, probably, family. The details are slipping away. I remember being Rachel Winters, but I'm less sure each time I think about it. Was that my name? Or is it something else? The attendant says this happens to everyone. The station takes memory as payment, he explained. The longer you stay, the less you remember about before. Eventually, you forget there ever was a before, makes it easier, less painful. I asked him how long people usually stay. He just smiled and said, until the station is done with them. Some folks years, some folks decades. Time's different here, I told you that. A decade here might be a day outside, or maybe it's the opposite, hard to say. What happens when the station is done with them? They leave. Get back in their cars, which are suddenly fixed, funny how that works, and drive away. Back to their lives or what's left of them. Most don't remember being here. They lose a few hours, maybe a few days from their memory. Small price. And if they do remember? His smile wavered for the first time. Nobody remembers. The station makes sure of that. But I'm trying to remember. I'm writing this down every time the memories start to fade, hoping that maybe I can keep enough of myself intact to escape when the opportunity comes. If an opportunity comes. I think I've been here for 3 days, or 3 weeks, or 3 hours. It's so hard to tell. My phone's calendar now shows month 13, day 88, year 2023. Impossible date. Like the magazines. The attendant is outside right now, still working on my car. Still dismantling and reassembling the same components in different configurations. Sometimes the car is a Honda. Sometimes it's a Toyota. Sometimes it's a make and model I don't recognize. But it's always my car. I think I'm going to finish writing this and hide the notebook under the passenger seat. Maybe if I forget who I am, I'll find this later and remember. Maybe. Or maybe I'll become like the attendant, smiling too wide. Working at the station forever. Greeting new stranded travelers with offers to fix their cars. Maybe that's what happens when the station is finally done with you. You don't leave, you stay. Forever. I think I saw someone else here yesterday. Or maybe it was a month ago. Time is so confusing. An older man, wearing an attendant uniform like my captor, working on a car at the pump. When I called out to him, he turned and smiled that too wide smile. 2 attendants now. How many broken travelers does this station keep? I'm going to try to escape again. I'll run into the darkness and keep running until I find something, anything other than this bubble of fluorescent light and impossible dates and a man who can't decide if he's inside or outside. If you're reading this, if you somehow find this notebook, then I either made it out and left it behind, or I can't finish that thought. My name is Rachel Winters. I'm 28 years old. I'm a graphic designer. I drive Route 221 through the Blue Ridge Mountains twice a week for work. And I'm trapped at a gas station that shouldn't exist. If you see it, old-fashioned pump, flickering lights, attendant with a too wide smile, don't stop. No matter how desperately you need help, no matter how bad your car trouble is, keep driving. Because once you stop here, the station might never let you leave. I found this notebook in the backseat of my car this morning. I don't remember writing it. I don't remember being at any gas station. I don't remember anything unusual about my drive last week, or was it last month? I'm confused about the timing. According to my calendar, today is November 22nd. The last date I remember clearly is November 14th. I've lost 8 days somehow. I Googled Route 221 gas stations. There's no old-fashioned station with a single pump anywhere on that route. The nearest service is 37 miles from where I apparently wrote this. But I found something that bothers me. My car's odometer. When I bought this car 2 years ago, it had 12,000 miles on it. I've driven approximately 25,000 miles since then, bringing it to about 37,000 total. My odometer today reads 83,000 miles. 46,000 miles I don't remember driving. And every time I look at the odometer, the number gets higher. This morning, 83,472 miles. This afternoon, 83,891 miles. Right now, as I write this, 84,203 miles. My car is parked in my driveway. I'm sitting in my apartment. The car hasn't moved all day, but the miles keep climbing, like I'm still there, still at the station. Still trapped in a car that drives in circles through darkness, racking up impossible miles while my attendant captor works on an engine that will never be fixed. I think I need to go back. I think part of me never left. I think the gas station still has me, and what came home was just an echo, a copy, a version of Rachel Winters that the station was done with, so it sent her back while keeping the real me trapped forever. The odometer just ticked over to 84,500 miles. I haven't moved. I'm still there, and I think I'm going to be there forever.